there guys, and welcome to this episode of Gearist TV. On today's episode, you'll never guess what we're going to be talking about. Okay, maybe you'll guess. It's the Saucony Kinvara 4! In about 2010, when the whole natural running or minimalist movement started to come around, thanks largely in part to Born to Run, a lot of shoe companies that were kind of the big boys of the industry were of the mind, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But then some of the people started listening to their runners and they realized that things were broken, and so that it was time to start listening to their runners more and see where they could go with that. One of the first of the big boys of the running shoe brands to really step up to the plate and address all these things was Saucony. And one of the first shoes that they addressed those things with was the Kinvara 1. Right here. With that shoe, Saucony really opened the door to a lot of people that had maybe never tried their shoes before, but more importantly, people that were looking for a more natural way to run. And as such, they gained a lot of loyalists, not just to the brand of Saucony, but to that shoe in particular. And now in its fourth iteration, we're going to take a look today at how Saucony has evolved the Kinvara 4 and an update from the Kinvara 3. Now, one of the challenges in doing a review like this is making sure that while we want to do an independent review of the Saucony 4, since it's got a lineage behind it, we want to make sure that we also hold it up to the light of history. In other words, we want to make sure that we compare it here and there to the Saucony 3, the Kinvara 3 rather, to see what's changed for better, for worse, or just kind of a lateral change. First up, let's talk about the outsole. Since its inception, Saucony's done a good job of keeping a very minimal outsole. There's not a lot of rubber. That's the Kinvara 1. Here's the Kinvara 4. As you can see, these kind of ubiquitous triangles that have been there since the beginning, those are made of XT900 rubber, and if you're familiar with the shoe, then you've seen those on all the models that have come before this one. On this model, the lateral side of the shoe, right here, is the only side of the heel that actually sports that rubber. On the other side is EVA Plus, which is an outsole grade EVA foam. It's a little more firm, a little more durable than traditional EVA. That rubber, that XT900, goes all the way up through the midfoot, and as you can see here, it traces the pattern where the weight is going to distribute as the foot moves forward through its gait cycle. So it starts here if you're going to heel strike. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And as it gets here, the rubber stops on this lateral side of the forefoot and then begins to track across to the medial forefoot. Now what that's going to do again is you're going to hit those friction spots. There's no real need to have extra rubber in the places where it's not going to wear. So Saucony did a great job cutting weight and really making sure that it's only in the places where it's going to be needed. Now, as it compares to the Kinvara 3, this is an unrun-in pair of Kinvara 3. The Kinvara 3, it's identical. 4, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3. Can you tell? Which one? Which one's which? Now let's talk about the midsole. So, the biggest difference between the 3 and the 4, the Kinvara 3 and the Kinvara 4, is the replacement of ProGrid foam, which you may be able to read right there, ProGrid foam in the midsole of the Kinvara 3 with PowerGrid foam in the Kinvara 4. Functionally, what that means, according to Saucony, is that PowerGrid foam in the Kinvara 4 is 30% more durable and 15% lighter than ProGrid foam. We'll get into what that means in a second. One of the questions that I had about this is that this is 7.7 ounces and this is 7.7 ounces. If one's lighter in the midsole, I'm just confused as to where that weight savings would be. But maybe, of course, it happens in other places. Maybe the laces are heavier. I don't know. So PowerGrid foam is advertised not only as being more durable and lighter, but also as being a little bit more responsive. And what that means to me a lot of the time is that the durometer, or the stiffness density, of the foam is going to be a little bit harder. So when you feel it, it's going to be like a tighter trampoline, almost, if you will. So when you really give weight to it, it's going to give you a little bit more pop back. Some people might not like this feel. I, for one, really like it because later in runs, when your legs start to get tired, there's a tendency in most traditional EVA shoes to really feel as though you're digging out a hole in it almost, kind of like you're sinking into the shoe a little bit too much, and that doesn't really happen in this. I've run in this shoe for about 60 miles now, and right up to about 10 miles a run, and it's been really, really solid the entire time. With a 4mm drop, which is where the Kinvara has always been, Saucony stayed true to their roots of keeping it as a natural drop running shoe. shoe, under 6 millimeters in my opinion. Now, one of the cool things that I really liked that they started a while ago, not in the Kinvara 1, but in previous models, was listing on the sock liner right there. I don't know if you can read that, if it'll focus, but what they said is 0 millimeters, 4, 8, and 12 millimeters. That's telling you the offset. So they've got 0 for shoes like the Hattori or the Virata, and then on up the chain. But right there, lowest, second to lowest, is the Kinvara right at 4 millimeters. The cool part about the sock liner that I really wanted to mention, which is probably going to be almost imperceptible to most people, is that there are flex grooves in the forefoot. A big part of natural running and really being in a almost minimalist running shoe is flexibility. Now, while I can sit here and make the forefoot look exactly like the rear foot of the sock liner, I assure you, this bends a little more easier than this, okay? So those flex grooves are really cool, and it helps when this shoe definitely passes the can I fold it in half test, as I always like to do with them. Ever since the Kinvara 1, I've been a fan of Saucony Kinvara uppers. They use a lot of great sleek lines and really think in depth about how the upper is going to interact with the shoe. So, in the Kinvara 3, again, this is an unrun-in pair of Kinvara 3. My pair of run-in Kinvara 3s seems to have evaporated. In the Kinvara 3, they have used flex film all over the place. That's these shiny kind of strappy dealies there. Flex film is a great, really solid way to brace the shoe and give it a lot of support features, support to the upper that is, support features while keeping the weight down and keeping everything with nice sleek lines. The Kinvara 4 is no different in that it still uses flex film overlaid or heat molded, heat bonded if you will, to a mesh upper. One of the biggest differences between the 3 and the 4 as it pertains to the upper is the noticeable lack or difference in the amount of flex film on the 2. As you can see on the 3, there are a lot of these longitudinal lines that are going to flex with the foot as it moves backwards and forwards. On the Kinvara 4, it's not as present, if you will. Now, a friend of ours, the Ginger Runner, he has mentioned that he, at about 60 miles, began to kind of have his pinky toe break through on the lateral side right here. I have not noticed that myself. However, I can see that happening because it's not as braced up and because of the fact that the upper doesn't really stretch. If the upper were to stretch, it would give with the foot. However, since this is not really a stretchy upper, it's going to kind of resist it. And anytime there's resistance like that, there is the potential for some sort of material breakdown. A definite improvement from the Kinvara 3 to the Kinvara 4 is the heel counter. As you can see here, the heel counter has been dropped a little bit on the Kinvara 4 because some people were complaining about a little bit of Achilles annoyance, if you will, some chafing back there. Additionally, it's been broadened. I'll hold these up. And you can see that the top back of the collar there has been broadened quite a bit. It's not only because it's high on the Achilles, but in the 3, it was very narrow. So if you had a wider Achilles or larger muscle mass down there, it was probably you're going to feel that around the sides and cause a little bit of discomfort. And they dress that nicely in the Kinvara 4. In general, the heel counter is really quite minimal. It's pretty flexible. There's not really a whole lot of structure to it. It does get rigid about 1/2 inch from the midsole, right about there. And what's great about that is that that's where your heel really hits the shoe, where your heel comes into contact with the shoe. And if it's going to slip, your heel's not going to slip starting up here. This isn't the center of gravity for your heel. That's down here. So that slight rigidity to the base of the heel cup is really going to do a nice job to sock that heel in there and keep you more stable. 2 final things about the upper. One is that they used Hydra Max material, which is going to wick moisture better around the heel here, around the heel cup. And the interior kind of single piece booty, if you will, inside makes for a really comfortable barefoot run. Now, I tend to run in socks pretty much all the time, but I do the favor of shoes of running in them one time without socks, and I had no problems with this. It was really comfortable, and as always, nice and light and right on the foot. Since running the first 3 editions of the Kinvara, I've gone from a size 10.5 to a size 11. So my Kinvara 3 is a size 10.5, Kinvara 4, size 11. Some reviews that I've read have mentioned that they felt that the forefoot toe box area was a little squished and they felt kind of really narrow. I didn't really feel that, and again, it could be because I've sized up. Now, holding these side by side, you wouldn't think that a half size could make very much difference, but there's not really any perceptible difference. Again, this is a 10.5, this is an 11, so it is possible that that is what accounts for that. However, my foot, which tends to be really exclusively average, didn't really notice any constriction in the forefoot or anywhere else in the upper. And the fit was really nice. It's right on a size 11, and it gave me plenty of room for my foot, personally, to work around in the toe box. When I first ran in the Kinvara in 2010, I was really taken by how quiet the ride was. I felt really balanced on the road, and I felt that while the ground feel was great, it wasn't great in that sense that I was feeling every piece of gravel, but it was great in that my foot just felt fully in contact with the road from front to back. A large part of that is due to this filled in instep here, this arch. So this is going to be in touch with the ground fully, front to back, and give you a really whole foot ground feel, and I really like that a lot. The Kinvara really is a very multi-purpose shoe. I mean, I've done speed workouts in this shoe, long runs, and 5Ks. This is a shoe that could really be your all-around just utility shoe. It can be your workout shoe, it can be your racer, it can be your trainer, you can take it to the gym. This is a shoe that lets you do all those things because it's really smartly constructed from the ground up. I've always really been a fan of the Kinvara, and this is really no different with the Kinvara 4. Now, I do have a little bit of trepidation about the durability of the upper, and that's fine. That's from reading reviews that other people have written. As of right now, I have no problems with it. That's not to say that there won't be a blowout of the medial or lateral material later on down the road, but as of right now, that's not happening for me. And so that's great. But again, different strokes for different folks. My foot is a lot different than other people's feet, so that's kind of what I have to chalk that up to. If I do notice a difference, you can be sure that if you read the written review, which is right there, that I will try and update that written review. So definitely check out Gearist.com to read the written review and check out any updates. The ride on the Kinvara 4 is right in line with where it's been in previous models. Nice and consistent, great ground feel front to back, and that added bit of stiffness that the Power Grid gives it over the Pro Grid is a really nice addition. For me, it is more responsive, and on courses and runs that require a little bit more agility, you get that much more pop coming out of a corner. Now that they're going to be on their 5th iteration of the Kinvara coming out in May of next year, I'm really excited to see how Saucony takes all of the things that they've discovered through the first 4 model years of this shoe and really rounds it out in the 5th. I've seen pictures and I've seen the write-ups and all this stuff on the Kinvara 5, and it's going to be an exciting shoe to check out coming May of next year. So I really hope that we'll be able to get a review out before it comes out so that we can tell you guys what we think of it prior to then. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Gearist TV. As always, please click over to Gearist.com and take a look around at all of our other reviews. We've got tons of reviews up there, so check them out. Also, please subscribe to this channel. There's going to be a beautiful blue subscribe button, I think right here in just a second. Please click on that and subscribe to this channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below or email us info@gearist.com. Thanks so much guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.
As always, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Gearist TV. Please click on over to find us at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And while you're here, please click on that beautiful blue subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.